So, Shadowlands has been out for months now. There are numerous problems, but overall I'm having a lot of fun, especially when compared to that one. However, one thing has felt off to me in this expansion, and that is the story. I can't really put my finger on it, but the story of Shadowlands feels off. And that got me thinking about the overall story of WoW, and yeah, it's not great. So I've decided to take a look at the entirety of World of Warcraft's story and find out why it is that the story rubs me the wrong way. To make a few things clear before we begin, the intent of this video is not to hate on any writers or developers of the game. The game is almost 17 years old. Holes in the story, it is to be expected. Also, I'm not going to deep dive into the lore of these games. I'm only going over the main story, so don't get mad when your favorite side quest about escorting a robot chicken across Daenerys is mentioned. And lastly, this is not a retelling of WoW's story. This video is heavily reliant on you knowing the basic story and the characters involved. Okay, let's get started.
Wants it other than rogues, because all the rogues can't roll on it. Khan, what are you doing?
What the fuck? Oh my god!
What the fuck?
The year is 2004. You've just logged into this brand new game, World of Warcraft. Start questing, start leveling, and eventually you start fighting dwarves and dragons, and you think to yourself, why? Well, the story of vanilla World of Warcraft takes place years after Warcraft 3. The Alliance and Horde are fighting each other again, and that's really all the setup. That's the thing about the story of vanilla World of Warcraft. There is none. There's no big narrative arc that sticks the entire expansion. Instead, Blizzard just kind of throws new things at players each patch. So in the beginning, you start off fighting Ragnaros in Blackrock Mountain to stop him from taking over the world. Then you fight Onyxia to stop her from taking over the world. You see, vanilla really only had these self-contained stories. They were simple to understand. These dwarves want to summon Ragnaros. Ragnaros is bad. Onyxia is a dragon. She's bad. But just because the stories were simple on the surface doesn't mean that they didn't have deep lore behind them. And that's a great way of doing these self-contained stories, in my opinion at least. Give normies just enough information to understand why we need to kill said bosses, but also give giga nerds something to dig up. The best example of this comes from the Gates of Antorus event. On the surface, you're just killing bugs and a giant evil eyeball. But if you actually read into the optional lore, you discover a story about an elf being ripped in half, which is great. So let's just go over Vanilla's story really quick. We fight Ragnaros and Onyxia, then we go to the dungeon of Maraudon to free a night elf spirit from his wife. We fight ogres in Dire Maul and get world buffs. We fight Onyxia's brother Nefarion on top of Blackrock Mountain. Then we fight Akar to stop him from sucking everyone's blood. We fight our first old god in AQ, and it ends with Kel'Thuzad and Nax. So Vanilla's non-story approach kind of worked. However, it leads through lore characters like Kel'Thuzad and Akar, but they always come back anyways. Sometimes they even come back in the same expansion. Honestly, for being multiple mini-stories, Vanilla's plots are handled very well. It's a very good narrative drive to go raid, but it's one that lacks longevity in my opinion. Overall, I really enjoyed Vanilla's story. It's pretty good. It's definitely not where my problems lie. So let's continue. Now it's time to cross a dark portal and enter the Burning Crusade.
Take it back, Jesse, take it back! Click the fucking bubble off!
Okay, so Vanilla was a bunch of mini-stories, but BC is different. This time we have a theme. We have a main antagonist. We have Draenei. So the plot of BC goes as follows. The Burning Legion opens up the Dark Portal again and tries to invade Azeroth again. So we go through the portal to Outland, formerly known as Draenor, also the homeworld of the Orcs, and now a homeworld of the Legion. So you would think that the plot would have to do with stopping the Legion, right? Kinda. Plot has to do with Illidan, that demon hunter from Warcraft 3 who got his nuts chopped off by Arthas. After Warcraft 3, he fled back to Outland and with the help of his crew, took over Outland. But it's also controlled by the Legion. It's confusing. And here we go with the first problems of the story. Illidan was never a villain. He was an anti-hero. So seeing him make this jump is very jarring, to say the least. On top of that, Kael'thas is a part of his crew, and he was actually a good guy in Warcraft 3. Now he's evil and an asshole. So basically they retconned Illidan's story to give us some raid content. Okay, before I get into the main plot of this expansion, there are a few minor things I have to go over that will come into play later. This is where we meet Khadgar. He does nothing. He just sits in Zatrath. Also, more importantly, we meet Garrosh, and, you know, this is the first real whole new character, which is awesome. Vanilla relied too heavily on Warcraft lore and didn't introduce many new characters or save things for later, so to see a new character get introduced is awesome. Side stuff out of the way, let's get into the main plot of the Burning Crusade, because it actually has one. Okay, so we start off by going through mega dungeons like Hellfire Citadel to break Illidan's hold on Outland. The first one of Illidan's gang that we fight is Lady Vash in Serpent Shrine Cavern. Then we fight Kael'thas in the Eye Raid, but we don't kill him. After that, we go to the Black Temple and fight the big man himself. So that sounds like we have a nice, neat, wrapped up story. Outland has been saved, and Illidan is gone. But remember when I said we didn't actually kill Kael'thas? Turns out Kael'thas is a little bitch, and when Illidan goes down, he sides with the Legion and tries to summon Kil'jaeden into the world through the Sunwell. But we stop him. And that's it. It's a fairly straightforward plot, but you might have noticed I left a few things out. That's because raids like Karasan and Mount Hyjal don't actually matter to the overall plot. They're just kinda extra. So what's wrong with the plot of the Burning Crusade? Nothing. If you look at it at a surface level, it is an acceptable story. It's not a bunch of separate stories, it's at least coherent. It's fine. But if you know the characters from Warcraft 3, you'll see how badly they messed them up. I don't think it's been that long since Warcraft 3. So it's kinda weird. That's really the only problem I have with BC's story. The story isn't complicated, and it doesn't need to be. In my opinion, WoW is at its best story-wise when it's keeping it simple. So it's like, okay, let's stop Illidan and then stop the Legion, and that's it. Okay. Next up, we have the best story in WoW.
Oh my god! Dude. You love it! Oh, you love it!
Okay, so Wrath of the Lich King is the start of WoW's narrative shift. There are a lot of side stories and extra stuff, but this is the first expansion with a real focus on the narrative. And it makes sense. The story of the Lich King is one of Warcraft's best, if not the best story in Warcraft, so getting it right is very important. I can't think of a lot of side stuff that actually matters to the main story later, so let's just jump into it. Okay, so after sleeping since the end of Warcraft 3, Arthas, the Lich King, wakes up and begins his quest to kill and turn all life on Azeroth into the undead. He sends his armies of the undead into the world in the pre-patch event. After the Horde and Alliance drive them back, they set sail for Northrend to begin their campaign against the Lich King. While pushing towards Icecrown, we fight Kel'Thuzad again, as well as cutting through many of the Lich King's other allies, like Anubarak. And I would just like to mention, as a side note, just how good of a job they did making Arthas seem like a present threat. He is in a lot of the dungeons, and he also talks major shit to players in some quests. This is great. Helps keep Arthas on your mind as you build your way to the inevitable final showdown. So cool, we fought our way to Icecrown. Now both the Alliance and the Horde stand united in front of the Wrathgate to fight Arthas. Also, this is the first story event I've mentioned thus far that isn't a dungeon or a raid. This is actually WoW's first ever cutscene, and a lot of shit happens. Lich King opens the Wrathgate, and just as shit is about to go down, the Forsaken show up and start blasting everyone with blight that also affects the undead. Basically, this is a faction of the Forsaken that, without Sylvanas' knowledge, mass-produce blight to not only kill Arthas, but everybody else. This rebellion is also led by Varimatharis. However, he also wants to summon Sargeras into Azeroth because he's a Dreadlord. So the blight gets dropped on everyone. This kills both Dranosh and Bolvar, the red dragons from the nearby Dragon Tower thing. Light the blight on fire, which revives Bolvar. So the Wrathgate What a bust. But there's a bigger problem now. The Forsaken Rebellion took over the Undercity, and now they're going to summon Sargeras. So quick detour, quick questline. Horde and Alliance take care of that, now it's back to the Lich King. Now we're actually in Icecrown, and we are preparing to go fight Arthas. Oh wait, we have another problem. There is a Titan prison named Ulduar that contains another old god that players have to kill. So we kill Yogg-Saron, and now we can start preparing for the fight with the Lich King. But first, we have to train for it, apparently. So the Argent Dawn, led by Tyrion Vordring, hold the Argent Tournament Raid to prepare the Horde and Alliance for Icecrown Citadel. Okay, now that's all out of the way, it's time to go kill Arthas. As we enter Icecrown, we find out that Bolvar is still alive and the Lich King is in the process of turning him into a Death Knight. So we fight our way to the top of ICC, and along with Tyrion, confront the Lich King. We kill him, free Bolvar, and the day is saved, almost. We find out that the Helm of Domination also controls the Scourge, and that someone must always be wearing the helmet, at least until Shadowlands. So Bolvar decides to put on the helmet and become the new Lich King. Okay, so that explanation took a little bit longer than the other ones. That's because it's a big story. Clearly Blizzard intended for the story to play a bigger part in this expansion, and they succeeded. Wrath of the Lich King, from a story perspective, is damn near flawless for an MMO. However, I can't reasonably give all the credit to WoW. It would be kind of hard to screw up the Lich King after Warcraft 3. So yeah, the story is told perfectly. I really don't have any criticisms. It's great. So we are 3 expansions in so far. How are things looking? So far, pretty good actually. 2 of the expansions have mass stories, and 1 has an incredible story. That raises the question, when did things really go wrong for WoW storytelling? Guess we'll have to keep going.
Prepare yourself for oblivion.
Holy shit, where the fuck do I begin with the Cataclysm? So after defeating Arthas, Deathwing bursts out of the Maelstrom under the influence of N'Zoth with the intent to destroy Azeroth, and he comes pretty damn close. He comes so close that it remakes the entire overworld of Azeroth and creates 5 new zones. It's very impressive. So in response, the elements lose their collective shit and become aggressive, but before I go any further on the main plot, there's one big shift I need to address. Up until now, the Tauren have been represented by Cairn Bloodhoof. He was in Warcraft 3 and he was pretty cool, so it makes sense. He fucking dies in between Wrath and Cataclysm. We never see it in game. It happens in a comic. You see, Thrall decides he wants to become a full-time shaman, so he shaves his head and dresses like a Buddhist. This also means he can't be War Chief anymore, so what does he do? He makes Garrosh War Chief. This is the worst decision Thrall has ever made. Like, what a fucking dumbass. Garrosh hates anyone that isn't in the Horde. He's a fucking elitist. So, why? Anyways, Cairn is pissed, so he challenges Garrosh to a mock Korra. However, Cairn had already lost because some random Tauren lady poisoned Garrosh's axe, so he just fucking dies. My problem with this isn't the actual story itself, it's meant to sow the seeds of conflict for later, it's the fact that it all happens in a comic, outside of the game. Something this significant should happen in the actual game. The only lore that should be outside of the game is stuff that isn't required. When you put moments like this outside of the game, you're asking the player to invest extra time to understand your story. Unfortunately, this is a trend that would continue, but I'll get to that when the time comes. Anyways, back to the plot of Cataclysm. Players travel across Azeroth in order to calm the elements and find a way to defeat Deathwing. Along the way, we battle the Twilight Hammer Cult, which worships N'Zoth, and we team up with the Dragon Aspects in order to kill Deathwing. We fight Cho'Gall, then we go to Blackrock Mountain because Deathwing, being Father of the Year, decides to resurrect his dead children to make them do experiments for his armies. So anyways, we kill both Nefarion and Onyxia again, then Ragnaros comes back and grows legs, so we kill him again. Then it's almost time to kill Deathwing. The aspects tell us that the only way to stop Deathwing is to zap him with the Dragon Soul, a magic dinner plate that Deathwing used to betray the other aspects during the very first war against Legion. So we pull an endgame, go back in time to get the dinner plate, bring it back to the present, the aspects put their power into it again, Thrall blast Deathwing in order to give us an opening. The fight ends in the Maelstrom, where Deathwing shows just how badly N'Zoth fuck him up. So we kill Deathwing, and that is it. I know a lot of people don't like Kata, and I understand. I wasn't exactly playing then, but looking at it from a story perspective, it's not really that bad. It's definitely not Wrath levels of good, but it's coherent. And I'll go back to what I said during BC. I personally believe that the storytelling of WoW is at its peak when they are keeping it simple. And with that being said, Cataclysm is simple. Go kill Deathwing. It's a very okay story.
For my kind, the true question is, what is worth fighting for?
Mists of Pandaria is pretty cool. It's one of the only expansions to make its own lore, which for the longevity of the game is very important. Pandas aside, if you look at Mop's story objectively, it really isn't the worst. It's a faction war expansion. Since Garrosh has been war chief, the whole Alliance Horde conflict has really picked up. Eventually they find Pandaria, and the battle continues there, with both sides wanting to conquer the land and destroy the other faction. Eventually Pandaria itself starts to fight back, and that's because of the Shah, which are leftover remnants of the old god Yasharaj. Yasharj. The Shah amplifies and corrupts emotions, and since we broke out into war in Pandaria, the Shah has come back. So it's our job to clean up Pandaria, but we also have to fight villains from Pandaria's past, namely the Thunder King, who enslaved ancient Pandaria. Now while this is all going on, Garrosh is searching for Pandaria's artifacts to help them end the Alliance. However, he's also an asshole, and the other Horde leaders don't like that. One leader of note is Vol'jin, leader of the Trolls, who Garrosh attempts to assassinate. This leads to an all-out rebellion, but before that can happen, Garrosh finds the heart of Yasharaj. So now Garrosh is superpowered and holds Orgrimmar, so the Horde forms a rebellion, and with the help of the Alliance, besiege Orgrimmar in the raid Siege of Orgrimmar. So in a WoW first, a main city becomes a setting for a raid. So players stop Garrosh and put him in Panda jail. So yeah, Mists of Pandaria is the first expansion without a main villain on the cover. Think about it. Illidan in BC, Arthas in Wrath, and Deathwing in Kata. It's nice to have the villain on that cover, helps give the story more focus, but with that being said, Mop's story is still pretty damn good. The Panda stuff is mostly uninteresting, but the Garrosh stuff is where it's great. His story is awesome, especially when you remember that he was introduced in WoW. He's one of the few characters to have a full arc, even if a little underdeveloped. So yeah, Mop's story was pretty good at the end. Warlords of Draenor. Dear God. I mean, there's the obvious, the expansion only has like 2 major patches and basically 1 giant content drought. I'm just gonna go over it really quick. After getting sent to Panda jail, Garrosh is sprung and sent back in time by Wrathion, the uncorrupted son of Deathwing, who we meet in Cataclysm. He does this because he foresees the Legion coming back in the future. Not soon enough, but okay, he sends Garrosh back in time because he reasons that Garrosh will stop Grommash from drinking the demon's blood on Draenor way before Warcraft and form a new horde that will come back to our time and help us fight the Legion. Or kill us and fight the Legion. What the fuck? Could you just not tell people that the Legion was coming? I mean, Khadgar is there, he's the Guardian. It doesn't make sense. Why free a war criminal? It doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. Like, what a dumb plot. Anyways, big shocker, Garrosh stops Grommash from drinking demon's blood, imprisons Gul'dan and creates the Iron Horde, and using special dragon magic makes a dark portal that goes back at our time to reinvade Azeroth and take it over. So Khadgar assembles the Horde and the Alliance, and we go through the portal, and the Iron Horde gets fucked. They really got fucked. We beat the Iron Horde in one patch. So, before that though, we established a foothold in Draenor, and we chased Garrosh back into the Grand, and Thrall kill steals him right in front of us. And he refuses to take responsibility for creating a monster. So we fight the Iron Horde, including ogres in the High Maul, and then we move on to Blackrock Foundry and kill Blackhand. So Gul'dan, set free by us in the intro, tries one last time to get Grommash to drink the demon's blood. He says no, even after getting his ass beat, so his friend Gilrog drinks the demon's blood, and Gul'dan takes over and corrupts Hellfire Citadel in the last raid of WoD. So in this raid, we have to fight the Burning Legion and free Grommash. At the end, Gul'dan summons Archimonde. Naturally, we kill his ass, and all is good in the hood. Except for the fact that Archimonde is somehow magically able to send Gul'dan to our present-day timeline. The way they explain this is that the Burning Legion exists through realities. Huh? That doesn't make any sense. What the fuck does that mean? That's the problem with WoD's story. You think about it, and it just falls apart. Time travel's not a good idea. Unless you are really able to pull it off, it is not a good idea. This is horrible use of time travel. Not to mention, Grommash is also magically forgiven after committing literal genocide in the final cinematic. So, this is WoW's first objectively bad story. It's really bad. But besides all the things I just mentioned, there's one thing I think it did the worst. It gave Garrosh an unworthy send-off. He dies in a cutscene at the end of a questline. You could have gotten another raid out of Garrosh. He deserves so much more, but what makes me angry is this line right here.
You made me what I am. No.
Yeah, you did. Not only does this expansion give an unworthy send-off to Garrosh, but it also makes Thrall's character infinitely worse. He just doesn't take responsibility for his action. He doesn't grow from it. It's bad. This is bad. This is not a good story. There is no way it could have been good. It's sad to see. Let's just move on.
Oh my god, I'm never gonna get a legendary. RNG sucks, this game sucks, Blizzard sucks.
So Gul'dan is sent to Azeroth and tasked with summoning the Legion back to Azeroth. Also, here's a side note. Demons can only be killed in the Twisting Nether, and apparently in the mythic only phase of Archimonde, we kill him in the Twisting Nether, so Archimonde is now dead. Is it our Archimonde? Apparently. Again, more reasons why time travel shouldn't be complicated. Anyways, Gul'dan raises the Tomb of Sargeras from the depths of the Broken Shore, and uses its power to let the Legion invade Azeroth. He also kidnaps Illidan in his prison. That's right, Illidan is still alive, and along with his demon hunters is being held in the Vault of the Wardens, which is conveniently in the Broken Isles. So in order to stop the Burning Legion, the Alliance and the Horde both charge the Broken Shore and get their asses kicked. Vol'jin, who was named War Chief after the Siege of Orgrimmar, is killed, along with Varian Wrynn, the High King in the Alliance. The Alliance blames the Horde, which sows the seeds for conflict later. Varian's son Anduin becomes king, and Vol'jin gets a whisper to make Sylvanas War Chief. Khadgar teleports Dalaran to the Broken Isles, and players have to split off to different zones to find the Pillars of Creation to close the Tomb of Sargeras. On top of that, players are also given their own order halls based off of their classes. Players get to go into Azeroth and collect artifact weapons such as the Ashbringer and Doomhammer in order to combat the Legion. So there's a lot of side stuff going on in Legion, so bear with me, I'm going to try and stay focused here. In Val'sharah, the Legion helps the Nightmare Lord Xavius take over the Emerald Dream in order to spread the Emerald Nightmare into Azeroth. Another one of our opponents is Helya in the Trial of Valor raid. She's not really tied to the Legion, however she did make a deal with Sylvanas, which we know nothing about and won't know anything about until a whole expansion later. The next villain is Gul'dan, who we fight atop the Nighthold. Gul'dan is fucking awesome. Despite the time travel shit, Gul'dan is a perfect Nemesis character. He is such a cocky bastard, which makes killing him so satisfying. After Gul'dan, we team up with Illidan to breach the tomb, and with the Pillars of Creation in hand, we close the portal, ending the invasion, but not before killing Kil'jaeden aboard his ship. After the fight, Illidan uses the Sargerite Keystone to teleport the Legion's homeworld of Argus, also former homeworld of the Draenei, right by Azeroth, which is completely ridiculous and also makes no sense, but fuck it, it's cool, and kind of makes sense. So we travel to Argus, meet up with the Army of Light, and take the fight right to the Legion. However, teleporting the literal homeworld of the Legion right next to our planet had unintended consequences, because it basically opened the way for Sargeras to just waltz up and destroy Azeroth, so we have to hustle into Antorus, the Burning Throne, to dismantle the rest of the Legion. Free the trapped Titan Pantheon, kill the World Soul of Argus, and trap Sargeras in the seat of the Pantheon. Illidan stays behind because he has nothing to do in battle for Azeroth, but he makes sure to give Want Me Eyes to Velen before he leaves. And bam, the Legion is gone, except for the fact that Sargeras has stabbed the planet. Oops. And that's the story of Legion. I may be biased when I say this, but Legion has my favorite story. And it's actually really good. The actual main plot is pretty straightforward, and besides the WoD time travel stuff and the whole teleporting Argus thing, the story is very coherent. It managed to redeem Illidan, character that got the shaft in BC, and also gave one of the most underused characters, Velen, a really good and complete character arc. Not to mention that the actual side stories like the Class Order Hall campaigns are really good, most notably the Death Knight one. I cannot recommend playing through it enough, it's perfect. All this amazing story stuff, and it ends with a giant sword in the planet, that you can go see for yourself in-game right now. It's there to remind us of that amazing finale, and it's the only one that I feel can top the fall of the Lich King.
Game. You know I need these vessels to get shit in your fucking game? Fuck you! Take a break, Richard? You realize I was in a great mood? And I played the game for 5 minutes and I'm here. I don't need a break. I need to uninstall WoW. This is a game made for anyone who's playing. Look at you, idiot! Look at you, you idiot! Why are you playing this game? You fucking dumb shit! You fucking moron sheets! You fucking idiots!
If Warlords of Draenor didn't exist, BFA would easily have the worst plot of any WoW expansion. I'm just gonna go straight into it because there's a lot here and I do not have all day. After Sargeras stabs the planet, it starts bleeding, producing Azerite, which is very powerful. This pushes the Horde and Alliance into an arms race, and eventually it erupts into an all-out war. I mean, there was a tiny faction conflict in Legion, but it all happened at the beginning of the expansion, so it's a pretty big leap to make. I remember there were a lot of people being really confused about how a faction war could start after Legion, so naturally they would explain that in the pre-patch event. Sylvanas just decides to kick the Alliance out of Kalimdor. Why, you may ask? Well, didn't you read the prequel novel? You know, the one that explains all of the Horde's motivations? No? You expected that to be in the actual game? Why would they put the actual story of the game in the game? Basically, Sylvanas is evil and wants to start a war for some reason. Her main goal is to take Stormwind and end the Alliance. Does that sound familiar? So the Horde begin to push into Darkshore, and the whole event ends with Sylvanas just burning Teldrassil, just casually committing genocide. Yikes. It's such a big jump, and it just kind of happens because she's insecure. And the worst part is, no one really knows what she's up to. No one really knew about the Jailer or the Maul, so at the time it just seems like mindless destruction and being evil for the sake of being evil. Anyways, in retaliation, the Alliance attack Lordaeron. Saurfang senses how the plot is derailing and decides to end his life, but Anduin forces him to stay alive against his will. The Alliance, with the help of Jaina, win the battle, and Sylvanas says if you can't have it, no one can, and blights the whole city. Before going all out for war, because apparently that hasn't started yet, we need new continents to explore, so the Alliance goes to Kol'Taras and the Horde goes to Zuldazar. They both gain the trust of their new allies, and now we're ready for war. But at the same time, Magni is trying to heal Azeroth and gives players the Heart of Azeroth to collect Azerite. So the first raid is an Old God raid where we fight a prototype Old God named Cahoon in an abandoned Titan facility. You still with me? Okay, so after that ordeal, the Alliance invades Zuldazar and Jaina kills their king and is then pushed out of the city, but not before the Zandalari fleet is destroyed. And while all of this is happening, Anduin sets Sarafang free and enlists the Horde players' help, and Horde players get to choose whether to side with Sylvanas or Sarafang. So Sarafang, along with a new character, Zakan, start a light rebellion. Sarafang finds Thrall, who has been hiding in the Grand, and convinces him to come back and fight for him. Sylvanas resurrects Jaina's dead brother. You guys sure you're still with me, right? You positive? Anyways, Bane decides, no way, Jose, and gives Jaina her undead brother back as a peace offering. So Sylvanas locks him up, and then players along with Thrall and Jaina have to go free him, and it's hinted that Sylvanas will go after Thunderbluff. She never does. So now it's time to talk about Xalatath. Xalatath was the Shadow Priest artifact weapon in Legion. Now the Horde players magically find it and free the old god inside with the help of N'Zoth, then give it back to Sylvanas. Now it's time to go to Nazjatar. The remaining Horde fleets lure the Alliance fleet into the middle of the ocean, and the ocean opens up and reveals Nazjatar. Both fleets are swallowed whole and have to fight Ashara, so it turns out it was a trap. Sylvanas gave Xalatath to Thanos, who then gives the blade to Ashara, so players have to go kill Ashara. So it turns out it was a trap. Sylvanas gave Xalatath to Thanos, who then gives the blade to Ashara. Sylvanas gave the blade to Ashara, so Ashara would kill us for some reason. So we go to fight Ashara, but that was also a trap because Ashara used our Hearts of Azeroth and all the Azerite in them to free N'Zoth. And she also planned on using Xalatath to go trap N'Zoth. And the whole cutscene is very confusing. So Azara planned on killing us and then using Xalatath to trap N'Zoth. So now N'Zoth is free, and Sylvanas is clearly evil. So Sarafang gathers the rest of the Horde and launches his Hail Mary assault on Orgrimmar, but Sarafang, right as the battle is about to start, challenges Sylvanas to Makura. She accepts the 2-duel. After getting hit, she reveals to the whole Horde that she's evil. She one-shots Sarafang and flies away like a cartoon character. If you stayed allied with Sylvanas, you get an extra cutscene where Sylvanas says that she's actually morally gray, and that's it. Oh wait, N'Zoth is still out there, huh? So with the help of Rathian, you know, the dumbass who made WoD happen, we delve into Ny'alotha and just kind of kill N'Zoth. That's the story of Battle for Azeroth. Fuck me. It feels to me like they wanted to make this expansion about N'Zoth, but they also really wanted to make a faction war that would tie in with Shadowlands. So what you end up with is this expansion with an A and a B plot. It's like a sitcom. BFA is basically a 2-year-long episode of The Office. The A plot is the Sylvanas stuff, which sucks. Apparently there was a lot of cut story in Legion that might have helped explain what Sylvanas was up to this expansion. Not to mention the Before the Storm prequel book. The problem is, none of that is in BFA, so if you want her story to make any sense at all, you have to take extra time out of your day to understand what's happening. And for the 90% of players who don't read into it, they won't understand what's happening. It just seems like Sylvanas is doing evil shit for the sake of doing evil shit. This expansion is so bloated that we don't get to hear her side. You may think, well, of course, they want to keep it a mystery. No. That's dumb. We don't really find out for 2 years. It's not interesting. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch this character that players have known for over a decade commit genocide. It's weak storytelling. So if Sylvanas is the A plot, N'Zoth is the B plot. N'Zoth has been built up since Cataclysm. Why is he set back as the B plot? He deserves his own expansion. Instead, we release him, and then we kill him. I thought we couldn't kill old gods. Well, they retcon that after we killed him. So all this powerful manipulator shit, this master 5-head squid god shit, he just fucking dies. And that's it. We don't get a tease that he's still alive, at least in game. And that's BFA. The only good story was Sourfangs, which I didn't even tell. It's a good story, but it's built off of destroying another character. So where does that leave us? We're in the Shadowlands, the mystery is solved. Sylvanas wants to kill everyone and remake the afterlife. The sad part is it kind of makes sense, and I actually like the overall direction of the story. I think Anduin becoming the new Arthas is great. So what's the problem? You know, that question I posed at the beginning, what is the problem with WoW's story? Nothing. Until BFA. I mean, WoD had a really shitty story, but at least it didn't give me a headache. And more importantly, WoD's story blunders didn't affect Legion. But BFA's did. And that's because BFA's biggest blunder is Sylvanas. And who led us into the Shadowlands? Who's still here now? Sylvanas is frustrating. Players just want her dead. And they may be getting their wish, as she is the last raid boss in 9.1. But it didn't have to be this way. And that's what's sad. The story of WoW isn't necessarily bad, but right now it's frustrating. It seems kind of anticlimactic now. I made this whole video to take a quick look back at WoW's story to find where the things went wrong. And I came out with only one real answer. The story of Shadowlands feels so off because of the poor story from BFA. My advice, my overall criticism to Blizzard would be to keep your story simpler. It's something I've repeated throughout this entire video. All we really need is a simple story. Go here, kill this guy, to go save these people. There's no problem in trying to make your characters deeper or your overall plots deeper. Garrosh is great example of that. But these things take time. And Sylvanas was rushed. It left players confused, but more importantly, it left them frustrated. And that is WoW's story problem. Thank you for watching my video. It's my first real one that I've actually put, more effort into. Took me a long time to make. Any criticisms would be greatly appreciated. Any overall feedback, what you think of my light analysis. I wouldn't call it a full, in-depth analysis of the story. But, what'd you think? Do you personally like Shadowlands' story? I would love to know. I encounter different opinions on it every day. Overall, I don't think Shadowlands' story is really bad. Again, it's just frustrating with the whole Sylvanas thing. But yeah, thank you for watching. Be sure to like the video, because that actually helps me out a lot.